go. Now we're ready. I think I'll start out with a little story. You have to bear with me on this. I've got a couple of threads I'm going to try to weave in. Try to keep it nice and short. That doesn't run in
Long is fine, Aaron.
that doesn't run in my genetic nature necessarily. For those of you know my dad, but I'll do my best. But I I'm sure I've told many of you the story about I had a trial where my client was a pirate. This was a few years ago.
This is not a joke, right?
This isn't a joke. This is a true story. This actually happened. My client was a pirate. And as a pirate, I don't know if you've been around pirates much, but I mean, if you think about it, they're kind of they're kind of edgy, kind of gruff characters. The eye patch was sort of, I mean, some people have eye patches, and if you're a pirate, it kind of goes with the territory. And our pirate had an eye patch, and he had a deep, kind of mean voice too. So spending this time in trial with this pirate. I did get him to cry on the witness stand, though, which was pretty effective ultimately. I saw it at a certain point, and I kind of saw certain ways where it's like, gosh, if this comes out, I think he might actually tear up on the witness stand, and he did. So even pirates have a softer side. But I spent a lot of time with the pirate, and he was a very intimidating, kind of intense character. And he would talk to myself and my colleague about the different, his treasure and his ship and the jewels that he found and all that. But one of the things that he talked to us about was that when he was a younger man, he got involved in what they call like life extension. I don't know if that's the right term, but it's essentially like supplements, right? But that, people who were really into this research, and he was saying he read these books, and these are in the late 70s or 80s when they were just breaking ground into these ideas that, like, if you can maintain your youth and vigor by taking all these supplements. And he was reading about it, and he said that he would spend, obviously as a pirate, he had a lot of resources at times, and he would spend thousands of dollars a month to amass these, extracts and herbs and roots and things, and he would mix them up into these like daily serums that he would take, and that he was really into this research. And then he said, then later they kind of determined that, well, no, like if you take them like that, it doesn't work. So, and then he kind of went on this whole thing, and he said, basically it boils down to the Mediterranean diet. Like basically when it comes down, I did a lot of, and it just really boils down to the Mediterranean diet. So, which I like because I love the Mediterranean diet. So I was like, okay, great. Well, there's another validation in a way. But that's a true story. All of that's 100% true. And what I was going to read is from Matthew chapter 15. The Pharisees come to Jesus and say, why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. And then he says some other things, but then he says at verse 11, not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. Yeah. And then the disciples ask him to explain more, and then verse 16 he says, are ye also without understanding? Do ye not yet understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly and is cast out into the draught? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witnesses, blasphemies. These are the things which defile the man. So, that idea of the brokenness of the human heart is central to our faith. And it's interesting because I find that if you talk to people about the human condition, everyone's like, yeah, I know. If you say to anybody, well, nobody's perfect, you get agreement. If you say, well, they're only human, yeah, no, I know. It's like, well, we're doing our best, things of that nature. I remember that was a theme in like American literature, Huckleberry Finn, Great Gatsby and all that. And it's like, what is this about? It's like, it's about the human condition. And people will go with you there. If you say original sin, all of a sudden it's like, no, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in any of that. Like, I'm not held accountable for some, so I don't, no, right? So it's interesting the way that phraseology will get people to sort of pull back from something that they otherwise completely acknowledge, which is that humanity is broken. At the same time, everybody is in search of the right thing to do, or relating it to the pirate story or to what the Pharisees are saying, to eat the ritual, the identity, something that's going to make it all better, right? It's going to make it work. I like to think about diet. I think about diet, and I do it sort of ironically, because we're all just getting through and doing the best we can. My friends and I will joke that, like, why do we want to? Well, you're going to eat all your protein on one day, and then you're going to do a big workout, and then you're going to eat your carbs that day, and what's the result going to be? And we joke, it's like, we're going to have that look, that, like, you're at the beach and people are like, whoa, look at that look, right? And it's a joke, right? Although I love fitness and I love all the things, right? But it's in my heart, it's ironic, because it's not what we eat doesn't change who we are, right? What we identify with, maybe like politically, doesn't change who we are, right? We have to go back to the core message of that human heart being broken. And all the other things we do are sort of just either distractions from that, or hopefully they can be in service of that seeking that gospel message, right? The good news. You can recycle all you want, right? You can make sure that you don't, drink so much alcohol or not. You can do your stretching. You can, do all these acts. But what we need is a renewal of our hearts. That's the central part of our faith. And that's really the only thing that matters, right? And so I've taken now, ultimately, to, in all of these areas, I want to keep in focus, it's all about that gospel message, and everything we do has significance. Not that it will save us, like the Pharisees, they were told, follow these rules. And they would follow those rules really, really precisely. They would say that in other portions it says they would tithe out of their spices. So they'd get like a little thing of salt, and they'd go like, well, let's get a tenth of that, right? And they would follow that exactly. But without the renewal of the heart, it doesn't do anything for us. And I think that, especially, the expression, there's an app for that, right? There's an app for everything. If you wanna figure out how to, invest your whatever, there's an app for it. And if you wanna figure out, make sure that your sleep rhythms are right, there's an app for it. And there's an app, and our society is very fixated on those things. They're very fixated on, like the next move, the next subscription, the next pattern, the next diet, the next thing. And again, all of those apps are great, right? That's very helpful. Okay, I can do that, right? And yeah, of course, like if you wanted to, be a faster runner, you should do these exercises, right? And that's all good. And God wants us to live fully, and we want to pursue all of those things and make the most of what we have and all of that. But really, the whole point is that gospel message. And so as we're pursuing those things, and whether personally we come down more, kind of on the Pharisee orientation, a little more legalistic in our approach, or whether we're a bit more free form. Neither of those really matter. What matters is that we find that identity with Christ and that he renews us in our hearts. And that is the promise that we are all here for, right? And the gospel message is that we acknowledge that brokenness in our hearts. We realize, as we're talking about, like, oh yeah, all these things that we're doing are really seeking after a solution to that emptiness. And the solution is in a personal identity and faith in Christ. That is the solution. The pirate's supplements that he took, they maybe made him, a little healthier at times or whatever. I don't know. But what he needed was that renewal from Christ. If I'm working out with my friends and we're playing around with these different diets or whatever, the whole point of that, especially my friends, none of whom really are Christians, the whole point is to get the conversation to the next place and the next place, and with the hope that they find that identity with Christ. At the point that any of us turn our hearts to him and accept who he is and that he died in this cosmic, like, magical act to change the nature of reality so that we can not be burdened by those dark hearts. We accept that as a fact and we put our trust and confidence in it. What our faith says is that we are given a new heart. And we're given a new heart in two ways. We're first given the stamp of a new heart. In other words, God says, okay, you're refreshed, you're renewed, you're reborn, right? That's why we have that baptism symbol. And then you spend the rest of your life, he's working on you, and he's shaping it, and he's, maybe saying, hey, you got this issue here, and you got to work on that. And sometimes, in my experience, just a personal anecdote, he sort of lets you go with it, and he lets you kind of run it out, and he'd be like, okay, you done with that yet? Because I'm shaping it and I'm bringing it in. So it's not what goes into our mouth that defiles us. And I would say that it's also not like the rituals that we perform. And it's not our superstitions that we all have, and those are fine, right? And it's not all of those external things that really qualify us and bring us to a place of validation and acceptance. Because in order to truly be accepted, we need to have new hearts so that God will accept us with those new hearts. And the only way to get those new hearts is to put our trust in Jesus, and then he'll give them to us. That's it.
Amen. Thank you, Larry.